Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today is dyno day. To catch everybody up on the project, this is my dad's 1974 Datsun 260Z, and we have swapped a Vortec 4200 out of a 2006 Trailblazer into it and added twin turbos to it. We also made a custom exhaust manifold, custom oil pan, custom intake manifold with a 12 injector setup, and this is the very first car that we have ever run methanol on. So we're going to have to do a little bit of learning with that when we get onto the dyno. But before we go there, I just wanted to do a quick plug. We are now selling shirts, and you can see this is one of our designs. It's the Nivlac 57 on the front with the Atlas engine, American 2JZ, Ameri-Barra, or Vortec 4200 on the back. And you can also find our other design, which is sort of an homage to Clifford Performance, which you can find at the link in the description. Alright, on to the dyno, guys. The first few pulls were entirely devoted to figuring out the fuel curve. Remember, this is the very first time that we have messed with methanol, so it took us a few pulls just to get the fuel map figured out. From there, we had trouble just even getting it to make a smooth pull. It almost seemed like an ignition breakup issue, but also like a valve train issue. So we put in a new set of plugs, and I tried leaning it out to the point where I would normally run a ethanol car, and we tried to make another pull. We were finally able to make a complete pull, but it still wasn't very smooth. As you saw a second ago, it made 515 horsepower at 6,300 RPM. Those that have been following the build the entire way know that we installed solid lash adjusters into the valve train. These lash adjusters should promote a higher RPM power peak, and we were not seeing that. To give you more context, my station wagon peaked at 7,300 RPM with hydraulic lash adjusters, so it was very confusing that this thing just didn't want to rev. Since the only real difference between the cars was the lash adjusters, we decided let's try and switch to hydraulic lash adjusters and just see if it makes a difference. Maybe the hydraulics dampen the valve spring a little bit and we're seeing valve float with a solid lash adjuster. Who knows? So we gave it a shot. Interestingly, it made 514 horsepower at the same boost. I would classify this as the same horsepower. Now, I'm not ready to say that the solid lash adjusters are a $550 waste of money quite yet. I think they may still have merit, but I will say at 6,300 RPM, they don't make any difference. Unfortunately, we'll have to come back to that another day. In spite of that, we still were having ignition breakup issues, so we tried to switch it to ethanol only. Maybe the methanol was causing some sort of issue. Who knows? So we gave that a shot, and then this happened. Notice how I immediately checked to make sure the oil pan was okay. That was the only thing I really cared about at that moment in time. Unfortunately, what we found is that 2 tabs on the torque converter got broken off, and it wedged the crankshaft forward, and that took out the thrust in the engine. This was definitely disappointing, but we were having issues with the engine anyways, so it was probably time to put in a fresh one to see if we could fix it. Unfortunately, not every day at the dyno is going to be successful, so we're going to have to come back another day and give it another shot. Alright guys, today didn't really go that well. Honestly, 515 horsepower on only 12 pounds boost on one of these engines is right around where you should be. But the thing just wouldn't run smoothly, so we just kept chasing that issues and figured it wasn't worth turning up the power until we could make a smooth pull. Both my dad and I are pretty disappointed, but we'll get it fixed. It's just a car, it's just an engine. We've had success before, we just have to push through with this one and we'll get there. Unfortunately, with the failure of the torque converter, it likely probably generated quite a bit of thrust on the engine, and my guess is the thrust bearing is probably totally shot. Also, it probably shifted the torque converter a little bit, and my guess is the pump in the transmission is also shot. This really sucks because now we have an engine that's hurt and a transmission that's hurt. This is definitely going to be a pretty expensive fix, so make sure you go down into the description and buy yourself a t-shirt. It would really help out. To add insult to injury, when we were unloading this thing from the trailer, we hadn't bolted the starter back up and we ran it over and we bent the shift linkage and the shifter cable on the car, and and it was just like a yep, that's about right kind of moment. We didn't put a hole in our nice fancy oil pan that we spent a ton of time building, so that is definitely one huge positive thing to take away from the day. But I think it might be time to just take this thing all apart, and it might be time to put forged connecting rods into a motor and put this thing back together, and that's going to happen very soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We're down but not out. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure that you like and subscribe, maybe hit the join button down below, and we'll see you in the next one.